Okay, welcome to this video tutorial on Skill Mockingbird. This is just an overview of what we're going to look through. So, how to plan in an exam, how to plan your response, top tips for essay writing in general, some sample questions from Mockingbird, and some key quotations. So, you can pause the video and make notes along the way. Okay, first of all, how do you plan in the exam or test? First of all, choose your question very carefully. Obviously the one you feel strongest on, the one you feel you can draw quotes on, and the one you feel you can say most about, the one you can give most detail on. Underline the key words. You need to make sure you underline and understand each word in the question, because if you misunderstand the question, you're going to lose out on a lot of marks. Okay, so it's a good habit to get into to underline the key words. Brainstorm or mind map the points that you will make in answer to the question and try to attach quotes to those. Okay, if you don't have the text in the exam, you'll need to memorize those quotations, as many as you can that are flexible for different themes and different characters. Then, as I say, attach those to a point. Next, in terms of structuring your essay, to number those points, put them in a logical order. It's up to you, but the most logical way would be to do it chronologically, working through the text as it happens in the order that events come. Or you can group things differently according to theme or character. That's your choice, but it's a more complicated approach that way structurally. And finally, begin with your introduction, addressing the question, defining the terms of the question, and just a brief introduction to perhaps the areas you're going to focus on in your response. Okay, top tips. First of all, in terms of structuring your essay, as I've just said, it's often best just to use a very logical, straightforward order, rather than moving and jumping back and forward from 7 to chapter 21, back to chapter 2, just for ease of understanding, just so that your structure is clear at this stage. I'd recommend you just use a very logical, step-by-step chronological order, working through the chapters in the order that they come, putting your quotes in a logical sequence. Make it clear where your quote comes from. This only needs to be a sentence. Minimum, you'll learn to make this nice and succinct, nice and concise. But you need to be clear on the context of the quote, so who's involved, roughly where it comes from in the novel, and roughly what's happening. Okay, especially if you've got pronouns used in the quote like he or this or that, which obviously must refer to something, so you need to make it clear what that does refer to. Use quotation marks accurately, speech marks inside those if it's something that a character has said, and commas accurately as well. Remember, a quotation must end with a comma or some type of punctuation mark. The present tense is a very common target. Your essay should, the vast majority of the time, be written in the present tense. So Scout says, or the author describes, not Scout said, or the author described. Okay, so keep it in the present tense. Use teal. Now this is the structure for most of your body paragraphs in your essay. A topic sentence, evidence, explanation, and then a link to the question. Here's an example. The question's at the top. So this one's on innocence, so obviously you're thinking about the role of the children, their experience in the novel. The first part in blue there, that's your topic sentence or topic sentences. Just introducing, first of all, you see chapter 19 there, where this paragraph is from. Introducing the main characters, and just also making an initial point, which your evidence is then going to back up. Okay, so the evidence is in green, and then all the detail comes in the explanation that follows. Okay, so just pause if you want to read that. So you get most marks for your explanation, and also just at the end there in purple, the link. Okay, so you can link backwards in a kind of circular way just to consolidate your initial point that you made in your topic sentence. Make sure everything is relevant to the question. You don't have to be obvious about it. It still needs to be relevant to the question, but it does need to actually use different words and make a clear point. Okay. Alternatively, if you're going to have an organic essay structure, you can subtly kind of link to the next paragraph. Okay, it should still follow on from the explanation, but if you can find a segue into the next paragraph that isn't too blunt, then you can use the link forward technique as well. And finally, of course, always answer the question. Anything that's not relevant to the question won't get you anywhere. And avoid repetition. I know it's quite tempting to repeat yourself if you think you've got a good point, but you won't get double marks for it. Okay, so make sure everything is relevant and all your answer is focused, so that you can get the marks from the examiner. Here's some sample questions. Just pause for a moment. You can take some of these down and use them to practice essay planning. Just as I said in the first part of the presentation there, choose your question, underline the key words, brainstorm your points and attach quotes to them, and then number those points as a side on the structure of your essay. Okay, so you'll see it covers the two main aspects. Essentially, the children's experience, innocence or the loss of innocence, their relationships growing up, childhood, parenting, and then the trial, justice, the characters that deserve sympathy, and of course discrimination and prejudice, the racism and class discrimination as well, preconceptions that exist in the Macon community. And of course a couple of references there to the mockingbird as a symbol, okay, as a motif. If you're looking for the most straightforward option, I would suggest that writing about character would be the safest option. Multiple characters, of course, is very difficult to talk just about one character in a great deal of depth, especially if it's an extensive essay. Perhaps the next would be to talk about themes, which would require you to synthesize different parts of the text into your response. And then perhaps that kind of bottom question there would be the most challenging, because that's asking for kind of a big picture view of the novel as a whole, how it fits into the literary canon, why it's popular, its lasting effect, and that would encompass all sorts of key themes. Okay. Now, some detail. You'll need a pen in hand, or at least the pause button. I'm going to go through some key quotes for characters from the novel. I'm going to start initially, split it into two, with basically almost entirely concentrated on the first part, and this is the children's experiences. Okay. So first of all, Miss Maudie, a role model for Scouts. This is how she's first described, a chameleon lady. So she is someone who takes pride in her garden and her flowers, and she seems to have this almost these royal connotations to her, that she's magisterial, she reigns over the street. Scout really idolizes her, okay, because of her composure. She appears peaceful and beautiful, and obviously she's not one of those women that judges, like many of the other women in Macon. Miss Stephanie then is one of those people. She spreads vicious rumours. She is the town gossip, and her opinions on things aren't really to be valued by Gem or Scout, or therefore by the reader. They don't put much stock in what she says. She's like the opposite of Miss Maudie, although they do come into contact quite a lot. Miss Maudie does put up with a lot from the other women. Now this is Miss Maudie actually talking about Boo. She's one of the few people who defends him. This is when all the rumours were spread about him and his schoolboy pranks, for which he was punished by his father, Mr. Radley, and then Nathan Radley, his brother, takes over, essentially keeping him in the house as punishment for silliness. And all these rumours Miss Maudie dismisses. So he was always polite, he was always well-mannered when he addressed her. Now this is the start of the trial. Miss Maudie likes to see the best in people, but she is shocked and disappointed to see just how popular the spectacle becomes. It seems like the white community are attracted to the trial because they feel that Tom is going to be served justice, and harsh justice, as if that's something to be celebrated. And Miss Maudie sees that as quite morbid, and really not a pleasant side of human nature. And she doesn't endorse that. She doesn't like that. Like a Roman carnival, when in actual fact it's a very sad affair. And she's one of those people with the anti-racist attitude. She backs Atticus and she supports the children. She doesn't believe that Tom is guilty. Now this is referring to Atticus. He is obviously an idol for the children, especially as they mature and grow up. But he's also kind of a pillar of the community. He's someone that the community turns to when they need him to take on a role that they wouldn't like to do. In this case, it's obviously defending a black man. There's a huge stigma attached to defending someone who's viewed as bottom of the social hierarchy. So she freely admits that Macon calls on Atticus to fill that role, this kind of heroic role, because they're not good enough. So there's a lot of admiration for Atticus there, and an admission really that Macon people are flawed. And Atticus, together with Miss Maudie and the experience that she has, they teach Scout that in reality Macon has quite an ugly face. And it takes a few years for Scout to realise that, and when she recognises it, she's quite shocked. This is again Miss Maudie defending Tom Robinson. This is at the Missionary Society's meeting called by Aunt Alexandra, and she really is quite concerned that Miss Maudie has caused this horrible awkward pause when she says this, because she's saying that Tom Robinson isn't a liar. All the women are very dismissive of him, and they talk very negatively about the black community, really just seeing them as servile, as beneath them in the social hierarchy, and deservedly so. Miss Maudie doesn't believe that. She does join their teas and partake in some of their activities as a lady of the community, but she doesn't actually subscribe to their views. And she freely airs her opposition, and as I say, that caused quite an atmosphere at the party, at the tea party. Mrs. DeBose, Scout's nemesis for the early chapters in part 1, widely regarded here, a unanimous opinion, the meanest old lady that ever lived, because of the way she abuses Scout, hurling abuse at her when she walks past. They're scared of going down that end of the street, just because she dresses like a tomboy, and of course later in the novel are abusing her and Jem because their father is defending a black man. And here it is. So she obviously demonstrates some of the really entrenched racist attitudes, the ignorance and the discrimination. Now, surprisingly, certainly for Scout and also for the reader, Atticus says she's the bravest person he ever knew. The reason for that is that she overcomes her morphine addiction. Now that's quite a powerful drug dependency, but she manages to overcome it. And Scout reading to her helps to distract her from the pain, the withdrawal symptoms that she would feel from coming off the morphine, which she's been depending on for many years, but she wants to be free from that when she dies. She doesn't want to be beholden to anything or anyone, she says. And that, Atticus says, is true bravery, because she knows that she's dying, she knows that this is a real challenge, but she still is determined to do it, and she sees it through to the end. So that's a lesson for Scout in what real bravery is. Dill, or Charles Baker Harris. So he's a kind of whimsical character in the book. He features mainly in part 1 with the children exploring and getting to know the Radley place and trying to lure Boo Radley out of his house. And then he comes in again at the trial. A pocket Merlin, so he's kind of a magical character, very imaginative, very sensitive, very compassionate. He likes to play the leading roles, some of the more flamboyant roles in the plays that the children put on. He's often full of ideas,